We tend to believe that wealth and influence are loud, that they announce themselves early, that they come with obvious signals, confidence, credentials, charisma, a visible climb. But if you look closely at the people who hold lasting wealth and quiet influence, you'll notice something strange. Very little about them feels urgent. They don't rush conversations. They don't oversell ideas. They don't react emotionally to pressure the way others do. And they rarely explain how they got there. This isn't coincidence. It's psychology. There is a layer beneath money, beneath strategy, beneath opportunity itself. A layer most people never notice, because it doesn't show up on balance sheets or resumes. It shows up in behavior, in timing, in restraint, in how someone moves through the world when nothing is watching. If two people can earn the same income, have access to the same information, live in the same city, under the same economic conditions, yet over time, one accumulates leverage, trust, and optionality, while the other stays busy, stressed, and replaceable. The difference is not intelligence, and it's rarely effort. It's the psychological signals they project, often without realizing it. Every interaction you have sends signals: how you respond to uncertainty, how you handle waiting, how you speak when you don't need anything, how you act when you do. These signals shape how others perceive your stability, your judgment, and your long-term value. They determine who gets trusted, who gets included, and who gets overlooked. And over years, not days, those perceptions quietly shape wealth and influence. Most people focus on visible moves: more productivity, better tactics, louder presence. But wealth doesn't respond to noise, and influence doesn't come from persuasion alone. They respond to coherence, to emotional control under pressure, to consistency over time, to behavior that signals patience, clarity, and self-trust. This audiobook is not about getting rich fast, and it's not about learning social tricks or manipulation. It's about understanding the psychological patterns that repeatedly place certain people in positions of advantage, financially and socially, while others unknowingly block their own progress. We'll explore why scarcity thinking repels opportunity, why long-term thinkers are trusted more, even when they speak less, why emotional discipline matters more than raw ambition, and why the people who end up with the most power are often the least visible early on. Nothing here is mystical. Nothing is accidental. These are patterns you've already seen, perhaps in a manager who always seemed calm when things went wrong, or in a colleague who quietly accumulated influence without self-promotion. Once you recognize these patterns, you can't unsee them. And when psychology aligns, wealth and influence stop feeling random. They begin to feel inevitable, not because you force outcomes, but because your behavior, identity, and signals are finally working together. That's where this journey begins. Not with money, not with tactics, but with the quiet psychology that shapes everything that follows. Chapter 1. Behavior comes before strategy. Before people struggle financially, they rarely struggle because they chose the wrong strategy. They usually struggle because their behavior cannot support any strategy for long. This is uncomfortable to admit, because strategy feels respectable. It feels intellectual. It feels like progress. Behavior, on the other hand, feels personal, emotional, harder to control, and far less glamorous. Yet behavior is what shows up when strategy is under pressure. Two people can follow the same plan. They can invest in the same ideas. They can read the same books and listen to the same advice. But the moment uncertainty enters the picture, their paths begin to separate. One person stays steady. The other starts adjusting. At first, the adjustments look smart. Small optimizations, minor changes, reasonable reactions to new information. But over time, those reactions accumulate. The plan slowly dissolves, not because it was flawed, but because behavior kept interfering with it. Strategy is fragile when behavior is unstable. Behavior is what takes over when results are delayed, when effort isn't rewarded immediately, when progress is quiet and invisible. Most people don't abandon strategies because they fail. They abandon them because waiting feels intolerable. And intolerance for waiting is not a strategic flaw. It's a behavioral one. We like to think decisions are rational. In reality, most financial decisions are made in emotional environments. Late at night, after difficult conversations, in moments of comparison, in moments of fear disguised as urgency. That's when behavior reveals its true role. Some people respond to uncertainty by becoming louder. Others become impatient. Others start seeking validation before acting. A smaller group does something different. They slow down. They don't rush to interpret every signal. They don't need immediate confirmation that they're on the right path. They allow time to pass without needing to fill the silence with action. This difference seems subtle, but over years, it compounds more powerfully than any tactic. Behavior determines how often you interfere with your own progress. Every time you react emotionally, you shorten your time horizon. Every time you chase reassurance, you weaken conviction. Every time you rush, you trade long-term advantage for short-term relief. And relief is expensive. People often ask why smart, hard-working individuals fail to build lasting wealth. The answer is rarely a lack of knowledge. It's an inability to remain behaviorally consistent when outcomes lag behind effort. Wealth requires delayed gratification, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. It requires being comfortable doing the same boring things repeatedly while others look busy. It requires staying committed while external feedback is silent. It requires emotional regulation when comparison makes patience feel foolish. These are behavioral capacities, not strategic ones. Strategy tells you where to go. Behavior determines whether you stay on the path long enough to arrive. This is why people with impressive plans often stall. They second-guess too quickly. They optimize too often. They confuse movement with progress. Behavior driven by anxiety always looks active, but it rarely produces depth. The people who quietly build wealth behave differently. They don't need constant stimulation. They don't chase every opportunity. They don't feel compelled to explain themselves. Their behavior is remarkably unreactive. They make decisions slowly, but not hesitantly. They commit fully, but without drama. They adjust only when the underlying conditions truly change, not when emotions fluctuate. This steadiness creates trust. Others feel it immediately, even if they can't articulate why. Investors trust it. Partners trust it. Opportunities move toward it. Because behavior is a signal. When someone reacts to every minor setback, it signals instability. When someone constantly shifts direction, it signals uncertainty. When someone over-explains, it signals the need for approval. None of these signals attract long-term opportunity. Opportunity looks for calm. It looks for consistency. It looks for people whose behavior doesn't collapse under pressure. This is not about suppressing emotion. It's about not letting emotion drive behavior. Fear will always exist. Doubt will always surface. Comparison will always tempt. The question is not whether you feel these things. The question is whether they get to decide your next move. Most people allow emotion to vote. A smaller group allows emotion to speak, but not decide. That distinction changes everything. Behavior also shapes identity. When you repeatedly act from urgency, you reinforce the identity of someone who is always behind. When you act from patience, you become someone who trusts time. When you remain consistent, you start seeing yourself as stable, and identity feeds back into behavior. Someone who sees themselves as steady behaves steadily. Someone who sees themselves as reactive behaves reactively. This loop runs quietly, shaping financial outcomes without anyone noticing. It's why two people with similar starting points diverge so dramatically over time. One keeps interrupting compounding. The other lets it work. Compounding doesn't just apply to money. It applies to behavior. Small reactions, repeated daily, compound into volatility. Small acts of restraint, repeated daily, compound into leverage. This is why behavior comes before strategy. Because no strategy survives emotional chaos. Because no plan can compensate for impatience. Because no framework can override a nervous system trained to react. A simple strategy, paired with stable behavior, will outperform a sophisticated strategy paired with volatility every single time. Not immediately, but reliably. This truth is difficult because it removes excuses. It means progress doesn't require a breakthrough idea as much as it requires a behavioral shift. It means the real work happens quietly, in moments where no one is watching. It means wealth is built less by clever moves and more by consistent restraint. Once behavior stabilizes, strategy becomes simpler. You stop overthinking, you stop chasing noise, you stop mistaking urgency for importance. And when that happens, something subtle changes. Decisions feel cleaner. Time horizons expand. Confidence becomes quieter, but stronger. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, momentum is forming. That is how wealth begins. Chapter 2. How scarcity thinking repels. Opportunity. Scarcity is not a lack of money. It is a state of mind that shapes how people move, speak, decide, and react, long before their bank account reflects anything at all. Two people can earn the same income, live in the same economy, face the same external conditions, yet one attracts opportunities effortlessly, while the other feels as though doors keep closing just before they arrive. The difference is rarely skill, and almost never luck. It is scarcity thinking. Scarcity thinking is the psychological posture of someone who feels they must grab, rush, or prove, because something might run out. Time, attention, approval, money, status. When scarcity thinking takes hold, behavior changes immediately. Decisions become faster, but less precise. Conversations become louder, but less grounded. Actions become urgent, but poorly timed. From the inside, this urgency feels logical. Even necessary, it feels like survival. From the outside, it sends a very different signal. Instability. People are highly sensitive to this signal, even if they cannot articulate it. They sense when someone is operating from fear rather than clarity, from need rather than choice. And opportunity is cautious. It does not move toward desperation. It does not reward pressure. It does not trust urgency. Scarcity thinking creates a paradox. The more someone feels they need something, the harder it becomes to receive it. This is why people operating from scarcity often talk too much. They explain before being asked. They justify decisions prematurely. They rush to demonstrate value instead of letting it be discovered. Each of these behaviors is an attempt to reduce uncertainty. But uncertainty is not the enemy. Impatience is. When someone cannot tolerate uncertainty, they try to control outcomes through speed, volume, or force, and in doing so, they weaken their position. Consider how scarcity affects timing. A scarcity-driven person acts as soon as an idea appears. They fear hesitation. They fear missing out. They fear being left behind. So they move quickly, often before conditions are fully aligned. A person operating from abundance waits, not because they are passive, but because they trust that the right moment will reveal itself. This patience is not laziness, it is confidence in timing. Scarcity also distorts perception. When you believe resources are limited, every decision feels heavier than it actually is. Every loss feels permanent. Every delay feels dangerous. This emotional weight clouds judgment. People begin to overvalue short-term gains and undervalue long-term positioning. They choose immediate relief over lasting advantage. And once again, behavior changes. They take deals they shouldn't. They accept terms that quietly limit them. They commit to paths that look safe now, but expensive later. From the outside, it looks like poor decision-making. From the inside, it feels like survival. But survival mode behavior is not compatible with wealth building. Wealth requires slack, margin, the ability to say no without panic. Scarcity removes slack from the system. It keeps people constantly reacting, constantly adjusting, constantly scanning for threats. This hypervigilance is exhausting, and over time it erodes trust. Because trust is built on predictability. People trust those who are consistent, those who don't overreact, those whose behavior doesn't change dramatically under stress. Scarcity-driven individuals are unpredictable. One day they are enthusiastic. The next day they are withdrawn. Then suddenly urgent again. Not because they are unreliable people, but because scarcity makes emotional regulation difficult, and opportunity avoids emotional volatility. This is especially true when it comes to influence. Influence is granted, not claimed. It is offered to those who appear stable enough to hold it. When someone signals that they are easily rattled by outcomes, easily pressured by time, or easily swayed by comparison, they appear risky, not malicious, not incompetent, just risky. And risk is quietly avoided. Scarcity also affects how people relate to others. When someone feels they are competing for limited resources, they start comparing constantly, measuring themselves against peers, tracking who is ahead, who is behind, who is getting more attention. Comparison intensifies scarcity, and comparison changes tone. Conversations become transactional, relationships become strategic. Interactions feel subtly tense. People sense this immediately. They feel when someone is present versus when someone is positioning. They feel when curiosity is genuine versus when it is driven by need. And again, opportunity pulls back. Abundance, on the other hand, creates a different behavioral field. Abundance does not mean excess money. It means psychological spaciousness, the belief that time exists, that options will appear, that not every decision is final. From this state, behavior softens. People speak less, but with more weight. They listen more. They wait for alignment instead of forcing momentum. They are not rushed by others' timelines. They are not threatened by others' success. They are not destabilized by short-term setbacks. This steadiness is attractive. It signals self-trust. It signals internal security. It signals someone who will not collapse under pressure. And these signals compound. People begin offering better opportunities. They include them in longer-term conversations. They trust them with responsibility and discretion. None of this is dramatic. None of it is loud. It happens quietly, over time. Scarcity thinking, meanwhile, continues to repel what it desires. The more someone tries to force outcomes, the more resistance they encounter. The more they chase certainty, the more uncertain everything feels. This is why working harder often doesn't solve scarcity. Effort applied from the wrong psychological posture only amplifies the signal. It says, "I am trying to escape," not, "I am choosing deliberately." The shift away from scarcity does not begin with money. It begins with tolerance. Tolerance for waiting, tolerance for ambiguity, tolerance for being underestimated for a while. Those who can tolerate these things gain an advantage that is invisible but decisive. They stop broadcasting need. They stop signaling fear. They stop rushing to prove. And as their behavior stabilizes, opportunity begins to approach again. Not because they asked louder, but because they finally became safe to engage with. Scarcity repels opportunity not as punishment, but as protection. Opportunity looks for steadiness. It looks for patience. It looks for those who can hold space without grasping. When scarcity loosens its grip, behavior changes. And when behavior changes, the entire trajectory shifts. Quietly. Chapter 3. The Psychology of Long-Term Thinkers. Long-term thinking is often misunderstood. It is mistaken for caution, for conservatism, for a lack of ambition. In reality, long-term thinking requires a level of psychological strength most people never develop, because it asks you to tolerate what others cannot. Delay, uncertainty, silence, and the discomfort of being early or appearing wrong for a very long time. Two people can share the same goal, the same resources, the same starting point. But if one thinks in weeks while the other thinks in years, their outcomes will eventually become unrecognizable. Not because the long-term thinker is smarter, but because their psychology allows time to work in their favor. Most people live inside short feedback loops. They want confirmation quickly. They want progress to be visible. And they want reassurance that their effort is justified. When that reassurance doesn't arrive, doubt begins to grow. And doubt demands action. So they adjust, they pivot, they abandon things prematurely, not because the direction was wrong, but because the waiting became unbearable. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is a failure of psychological tolerance. Long-term thinkers are different in one critical way. They are not dependent on immediate feedback to maintain commitment. They understand something most people don't. Progress is often invisible before it becomes inevitable. This understanding changes behavior. While others are reacting to short-term noise, long-term thinkers remain anchored. They are not numb to information, but they are selective about what they respond to. They do not confuse motion with momentum, and they do not confuse activity with advancement, and they do not confuse attention with value. This restraint is not passive. It is deliberate. Long-term thinkers know that every unnecessary reaction has a cost, not just in time, but in clarity. Each reaction fragments focus. Each adjustment interrupts compounding, so they choose carefully when to act. They wait for signals that matter, not signals that are loud. This is why they often appear slow. From the outside, it can look like hesitation, like missed opportunities, like a lack of urgency. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. They are preserving optionality. Optionality is the ability to act later, from a stronger position. It is the freedom that comes from not needing to decide immediately. Most people give up optionality in exchange for relief, and they commit early because waiting feels uncomfortable. They lock themselves into paths because ambiguity feels threatening. They rush decisions because stillness feels like falling behind. Long-term thinkers do the opposite. They remain uncommitted longer. They gather information quietly. They allow patterns to reveal themselves over time. And when they do act, they act with conviction, because the decision has matured. This patience creates leverage, not financial leverage at first, psychological leverage. They are not easily pressured. They are not rushed by others' timelines. They are not swayed by temporary trends. This makes them difficult to manipulate. And people instinctively respect that. Trust builds around those who do not react impulsively. Influence accumulates around those who can hold tension without collapsing into action. And this is one of the quiet advantages of long-term thinking. It signals stability. Stability tells others that you can be relied upon in uncertain environments, that you won't panic when things go wrong, that you won't abandon commitments when conditions change. In a world obsessed with speed, stability becomes rare, and rarity attracts value. Long-term thinkers also relate to failure differently. Short-term thinkers experience setbacks as verdicts, as evidence that something isn't working, as proof that they should change direction immediately. Long-term thinkers experience setbacks as data, information, not identity. They don't rush to reinterpret every negative outcome as a personal flaw or a strategic collapse. They expect volatility. They anticipate resistance. They understand that meaningful progress is rarely linear. And this expectation changes emotional response. Instead of panic, there is curiosity. Instead of urgency, there is assessment. Instead of abandonment, there is adjustment, slow and measured. Over time, this emotional posture compounds. They make fewer drastic mistakes. They preserve capital, financial, social, and psychological. They remain in the game longer, and staying in the game is everything. Compounding only works for those who don't exit early. This is true for investments, for careers, for relationships, for reputation. Long-term thinkers understand that most advantages don't come from brilliance, but from endurance, from being present long enough for others to give up. This endurance is not physical. It is psychological. It is the ability to withstand boredom without seeking stimulation, to endure doubt without seeking validation, to tolerate being underestimated without trying to correct the narrative. These traits are uncomfortable, and that discomfort filters people out, which is why long-term thinkers face less competition over time. While others chase novelty, they deepen foundations. While others seek attention, they build credibility. While others optimize for speed, they optimize for staying power. None of this produces immediate applause. In fact, long-term thinkers often appear invisible early on. They are not the loudest in the room. They are not the fastest movers. They are not the most celebrated, but they are watching. They are learning. They are positioning. And when conditions shift, as they always do, they are prepared. This preparedness is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't require explanation. It simply shows up when it's needed. This is why long-term thinkers often seem lucky in hindsight. Others say they were in the right place at the right time. What they miss is the psychological work that made that possible. The years of restraint, the patience through uncertainty, the discipline to wait while others rushed. Luck is often just patience meeting opportunity. And patience is a psychological skill, one that must be trained, not through force, but through exposure, by sitting with uncertainty instead of escaping it, by letting plans breathe instead of suffocating them with constant interference, by trusting time without disengaging from responsibility. This is not easy. Short-term thinking is rewarded constantly. It offers dopamine. It offers reassurance. It offers the illusion of control. Long-term thinking offers none of that. What it offers instead is alignment. Alignment between behavior and horizon, between expectation and reality, between effort and outcome. And when that alignment is present, wealth grows quietly. Not because of aggressive moves, not because of perfect timing, but because nothing interrupts the process long enough to break it. This is the psychology of long-term thinkers. They don't try to outsmart the world. They outlast noise. And in the end, that makes all the difference. Chapter 4. Social signals that create influence. Without noise, influence is often misunderstood as visibility. People assume that to be influential, you must speak often, appear frequently, and make yourself known. They equate presence with power, volume with authority, and exposure with importance. But real influence rarely announces itself that way. In fact, the most durable forms of influence are built quietly, through signals so subtle that most people don't even realize they are responding to them. Every social environment runs on signals. Before anyone listens to what you say, they are already interpreting how you move, how you wait, how you respond, and how you handle moments when nothing is required of you. These signals are processed unconsciously. They answer questions no one asks out loud. Is this person stable? Are they secure? Do they need something from me? Can they be trusted with responsibility? Influence begins there, not in persuasion, but in perception. People with noise-heavy behavior often believe they are increasing their influence by being more active, more visible, more expressive. But what they are often doing, without realizing it, is flooding the signal. When everything is emphasized, nothing stands out. When someone speaks constantly, their words lose weight. When someone reacts to everything, their reactions lose meaning. When someone explains too much, their confidence is questioned. This isn't because people are judgmental. It's because the brain associates restraint with certainty. Quiet behavior communicates something powerful. I don't need to prove myself right now. And that message lands before any argument is made. But influence without noise is built on control. Control over attention, emotion, and timing. Consider how timing affects perception. A person who speaks immediately after every event appears reactive. A person who waits appears thoughtful. A person who rushes to fill silence appears uncomfortable. A person who allows silence appears grounded. These differences may seem small, but they compound. Over time, people begin to look toward the quiet individual for cues. They trust their reactions more. They assume depth where there is restraint. Not because the quiet person is always correct, but because their behavior signals discernment. This is how influence accumulates without effort. The irony is that trying to be influential often prevents influence from forming. When someone needs to be heard, others feel it. When someone needs agreement, it leaks through tone. When someone needs validation, it shapes their posture. These needs create pressure in interactions, and pressure creates resistance. Influence cannot be forced because it is not granted by logic. It is granted by emotional safety. People give influence to those who feel safe to follow. Safety comes from predictability, from emotional steadiness, from the sense that someone will not overreact, overcorrect, or collapse under pressure. Noise disrupts that sense. Noise can take many forms. It can be verbal, talking too much, explaining too early, interrupting alignment with urgency. It can be emotional, reacting strongly, displaying frustration, showing impatience when outcomes aren't immediate. It can be strategic, constantly signaling ambition, constantly repositioning, constantly broadcasting intent. Now, each form of noise sends the same underlying message. I am unsettled. And unsettled signals rarely inspire trust. Quiet influence works differently. It doesn't seek attention. It attracts it indirectly. People begin to notice who remains calm when others are reactive, who listens fully before responding, who doesn't rush to take credit or defend their position. These behaviors signal confidence without declaration. They suggest internal stability, and internal stability is magnetic. This is why some people seem to gain authority over time without ever chasing it. They don't dominate conversations. They don't perform certainty. They don't compete for visibility. They simply behave in a way that makes others comfortable deferring to them. Influence also grows through selective engagement. Not every moment requires a response. Not every opinion needs to be shared. Not every opportunity deserves attention. Quietly, influential people are selective. They choose when to engage and when to remain neutral. They respond where their presence adds clarity, not noise. They avoid reacting simply to be seen. This selectivity increases perceived value. Scarcity always increases value. When someone is always available, their attention feels cheap. When someone engages sparingly, their involvement feels meaningful. This principle applies socially as much as it does economically. Influence increases when attention is disciplined. Another overlooked aspect of quiet influence is emotional containment. In stressful situations, people unconsciously scan for emotional leaders. They look for someone whose behavior suggests control, not control over others, but control over themselves. The person who stays regulated under pressure becomes a reference point. Others take cues from their tone, their pacing, their reactions. This is influence in real time. It doesn't come from authority. It comes from presence, and presence cannot be faked for long. If someone appears calm but is internally frantic, the inconsistency eventually leaks. If someone suppresses emotion rather than regulating it, tension builds. Quiet influence requires genuine emotional mastery. Not the absence of feeling, but the ability to experience emotion without broadcasting it. This ability creates trust. People trust those who can hold complexity without oversimplifying, who can sit with discomfort without rushing to resolve it, who can disagree without escalating. These qualities are rare, which is why they stand out. Quiet influence also avoids the trap of overexposure. When people share everything, thoughts, plans, frustrations, they lose leverage. Information asymmetry disappears. Others no longer need to wonder, interpret, or engage deeply. Mystery, in small doses, creates gravity, not secrecy, not manipulation, but restraint. Leaving some things unsaid allows others to lean in. It invites curiosity. It creates space for interpretation. Influence thrives in that space. Over time, the accumulation of these signals, restraint, timing, emotional regulation, selective engagement, creates a reputation. A reputation not built on branding, but on behavior. And people begin to describe such individuals in consistent ways. They're steady. They don't overreact. They think long-term. They're reliable. These descriptions open doors. They lead to trust-based opportunities, to invitations into meaningful conversations, to roles that require discretion and judgment. None of this is loud, none of it is dramatic, and none of it happens quickly, but it lasts. Noise, by contrast, burns fast. It creates spikes of attention without depth, moments of visibility without continuity, influence that depends on constant output. Eventually, it exhausts both the person producing it and the people receiving it. Quiet influence is sustainable because it does not rely on constant performance. It relies on consistency, and consistency is something behavior can maintain long after energy fades. In the long run, influence is not about how much you say. It's about what your behavior suggests when you say nothing at all. That is where real power quietly takes root. Chapter 5. Emotional control is financial control. Money is often treated as a technical problem. People assume that if they learn enough formulas, strategies, and systems, financial stability will follow. But this assumption ignores the force that shapes nearly every financial outcome long before logic enters the picture. Emotion. Most financial damage does not come from ignorance. It comes from loss of emotional control, fear, ego, impatience, regret. These forces don't announce themselves as emotions. They disguise themselves as reasonable decisions, as playing it safe, as not missing an opportunity. But underneath, emotion is steering the wheel. Every market cycle, every career move, every negotiation reveals the same pattern. People don't lose money because they lack intelligence. They lose money because they cannot remain emotionally regulated when uncertainty appears. Emotional control is not about being calm all the time. It is about not allowing internal states to dictate external behavior. There is a critical difference. Everyone feels fear when outcomes are uncertain. Everyone feels excitement when opportunity appears. Everyone feels anxiety when things move slowly. The difference lies in what happens next. Some people feel emotion and pause. Others feel emotion and act. That gap between feeling and acting is where wealth is either protected or destroyed. Consider urgency. Urgency feels productive. It feels decisive. It feels like movement. But urgency is almost always emotional, not strategic. It arises when someone is trying to escape discomfort rather than improve position. When urgency enters financial decision-making, time horizons shrink. People stop asking, "Is this right?" and start asking, "Will this make the feeling go away?" They chase relief. Relief might come from buying, selling, switching, quitting, or committing too quickly. And while the relief is real, it is temporary. The cost, however, is permanent. Emotion-driven decisions tend to trade long-term stability for short-term emotional comfort. And the market, quietly and consistently, punishes that trade. This is why emotional volatility is so expensive. Volatility doesn't just move prices, it moves people. Fear causes people to exit too early. Greed causes people to enter too late. Ego causes people to double down when they should reassess. None of these mistakes come from lack of knowledge. They come from loss of regulation. Financial control begins with emotional containment, the ability to feel emotion without broadcasting it, to experience impulse without obeying it, to allow discomfort without immediately reacting. This ability creates space, and space creates better decisions. People who maintain emotional control don't make more decisions, they make fewer. They don't react to every fluctuation. They don't need constant confirmation. They don't personalize temporary setbacks. They allow systems to work. Most people sabotage compounding not by making catastrophic mistakes, but by making small emotional adjustments too frequently. They interrupt the process. They check too often. They tweak too soon. They override patience with anxiety. Each interruption feels minor, but collectively, they break momentum. Compounding requires stillness, not inaction, but behavioral consistency. This is why emotionally regulated people often appear boring. They don't chase excitement, they don't dramatize setbacks, they don't narrate every decision. From the outside, it can look like they are doing less. In reality, they are doing the most important thing of all. They are staying in control. Emotional control also determines how people handle comparison. Comparison is one of the most dangerous emotional triggers in finance. Seeing others move faster, earn more, receive recognition. Comparison activates insecurity, and insecurity demands action. People abandon good paths because someone else appears to be ahead. They change strategies not because conditions changed, but because their emotional state did. This is how good plans die quietly. And emotionally controlled individuals experience comparison differently. They notice it, but they don't obey it. They understand that visibility is not velocity. That noise is not progress. That short-term success says little about long-term outcomes. This understanding protects them. They stay anchored to their own horizon. They allow others to sprint while they continue walking. And over time, the walkers pass the sprinters. Emotional control also shapes how people handle loss. Loss is unavoidable. Mistakes happen. Markets move. The emotionally unregulated respond to loss with identity threat. They interpret it as evidence of incompetence, failure, or personal flaw. This interpretation leads to overcorrection. They chase redemption trades. They make aggressive moves to fix the damage. They escalate risk to repair ego. The emotionally controlled respond differently. They separate outcome from identity. Loss becomes information, not condemnation. A signal to assess, not to panic. This preserves capital, not just financial, but psychological. Psychological capital matters. Once someone loses trust in their own decision-making, they begin outsourcing control. They seek opinions excessively. They hesitate when action is required, or they swing between extremes. Regulated individuals protect psychological capital fiercely. They know that confidence built slowly is fragile and must not be shattered by emotional reactions. This is why emotional control is inseparable from financial control. Yes, you cannot manage money well if your internal state is chaotic. You cannot hold long-term positions if you are emotionally short-term. You cannot build wealth if your behavior is driven by moods. None of this requires suppressing emotion. Suppression creates tension. Tension leaks. Control comes from awareness and containment, from noticing emotion without obeying it, from allowing discomfort without resolving it immediately, from understanding that most impulses fade if not acted upon. This discipline is quiet. No one sees it. No one praises it, but it compounds relentlessly. Over time, emotionally controlled individuals gain advantages others cannot replicate. They see clearer under pressure. They act more decisively when it matters. They avoid the traps that consume emotional energy and capital. And perhaps, most importantly, they become predictable to themselves. They trust their own behavior. This self-trust is the foundation of wealth. Not optimism, not aggression, not brilliance, but the ability to remain internally stable while the external world fluctuates. Money responds to behavior. Behavior responds to emotion. Control the emotion, and the behavior follows. And when behavior is stable, wealth has room to grow. Quietly. Chapter 6. Why quiet people often end up with more power. Power is usually imagined as something loud. People picture dominance, visibility, authority asserted through words, presence amplified through constant engagement. They assume power belongs to those who speak first, speak most, and speak with certainty. But lasting power rarely looks like that. In reality, the people who end up holding the most influence are often the least noisy early on. They are not trying to be noticed, they are not competing for attention, and they are not eager to prove themselves. They are quiet. Not because they lack confidence, but because they understand something most people overlook. Power grows where attention is disciplined. Quiet people conserve attention. They don't spend it recklessly. They don't leak it through constant reaction. And this conservation creates leverage. In social environments, attention is currency. The more you give away without intention, the less authority you retain. People who comment on everything, react to everything, and insert themselves everywhere may feel active, but they are also predictable. Predictability reduces power. Quiet people are different. They observe before they act. They listen more than they speak. They allow others to reveal themselves. This creates asymmetry. When you know more about others than they know about you, you gain optionality. You're not forced to respond immediately. You're not pressured into positions you didn't choose. You retain the ability to decide from clarity rather than urgency. This is one of the hidden advantages of quiet behavior. It creates space. Space to think. Space to wait. Space to choose. Most people struggle with space. Silence makes them uncomfortable. Stillness feels like stagnation. Not responding feels like losing relevance. So they fill the space. They talk, they explain, they react. In doing so, they give away control. Quiet individuals resist this impulse. They don't rush to clarify. They don't rush to defend. They don't rush to assert. They allow ambiguity to exist, and ambiguity shifts power. When you are comfortable with ambiguity, others begin to orient around you. They watch more closely. They interpret your silence. They wait for your response. This waiting is subtle, but meaningful. It signals deference, not because you demanded it, but because your behavior invited it. Quiet people also tend to be less emotionally reactive. This is not because they feel less. And it's because they've learned to separate internal experience from external expression. When pressure rises, many people externalize their stress. Their voice changes, their pace accelerates, their tone sharpens. Quiet individuals absorb pressure without broadcasting it. They slow down when others speed up. They pause when others panic. They remain measured when others escalate. This steadiness becomes a reference point. In moments of uncertainty, Groups instinctively look for emotional anchors, someone whose behavior suggests control. Not control over the situation, but control over themselves. That person gains influence without asking for it. Because calm is contagious. People mirror it, they trust it, they follow it. This is why quiet people are often entrusted with responsibility, not because they are the most charismatic, but because they are the least likely to create chaos. Power often flows toward those who reduce volatility. Another reason quiet people accumulate power is that they do not compete openly. Open competition signals insecurity. It says, I need to win now. I need to be seen. I need to prove something. Quiet people do not signal need. They don't rush to outperform. They don't rush to compare. They don't rush to claim credit. They let outcomes speak. This restraint creates contrast. In environments full of self-promotion, the absence of it stands out. In rooms full of noise, silence carries weight. Over time, people begin to associate quiet behavior with depth. They assume thoughtfulness where there is patience. They assume strength where there is restraint. These assumptions are not always accurate, but they are powerful. As power is not only about reality, it is about perception, and perception is shaped by behavior far more than by words. Quiet people also tend to be selective about their commitments. They don't say yes reflexively. They don't overextend. They don't spread themselves thin. This selectivity increases their value. When someone is always available, their presence feels common. When someone is selective, their involvement feels significant. This is a simple principle, but it operates everywhere. In leadership, in business, in relationships. Scarcity creates value. Quiet people naturally create scarcity, not by withholding, but by being deliberate. They show up fully when they choose to engage. They are present, focused, and composed. This makes their contribution memorable. Others begin to seek their input, not because it is frequent, but because it is measured. Power grows in this pattern, not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily. Another overlooked aspect of quiet power is identity. Quiet individuals are less invested in being perceived a certain way in the moment. They are not constantly managing impressions. They are not crafting narratives in real time. This frees cognitive bandwidth. While others are busy performing, quiet people are observing dynamics. They notice shifts in tone. They notice unspoken tensions. They notice who reacts and who remains steady. This situational awareness is a form of power. It allows them to anticipate moves rather than chase them, to position themselves rather than scramble, to act when leverage is highest, but not when pressure is loudest. Most people mistake silence for passivity, but quiet people are rarely passive. They are patient, they are storing energy, they are waiting for moments that matter. And when they do act, their actions land with disproportionate impact. Because people are not desensitized to them, their words haven't been diluted by overuse. Their presence hasn't been normalized through constant exposure. When they speak, people listen. When they decide, others adjust. This is how quiet people often end up with more power than those who chased it openly. They didn't seek authority. They became a stable center others gravitated toward. Power followed behavior, not ambition, not visibility, not force, but restraint, consistency, and emotional control. In the long run, power does not reward the loudest voice. It rewards the person whose behavior signals that they can be trusted with it, quietly. Chapter 7. The Identity Layer. Behind wealth, before money changes, identity is already at work. Long before someone earns more, saves more, or invests differently, they have already decided, often unconsciously, who they are in relation to money, risk, and responsibility. That decision shapes behavior quietly, consistently, and relentlessly. Identity is the story you live inside. Not the story you tell others, but the one you repeat to yourself when no one is listening. The one that explains your choices, the one that justifies your limits. Most people think wealth is blocked by circumstances, income, education, opportunity, timing. But far more often, it is blocked by identity. People act in ways that protect their self-image, even when that image is outdated or harmful. They will sabotage progress before they allow behavior that contradicts who they believe themselves to be. This is why financial change feels so difficult. It is not just about learning new habits. It is about becoming someone new. Consider how identity shapes decisions. If someone sees themselves as a cautious person, they will avoid risk, even when risk is appropriate. They will frame avoidance as wisdom, even when it limits growth. If someone sees themselves as not good with money, they will disengage from learning. Mistakes become confirmation, not feedback. If someone sees themselves as the responsible one, they may avoid opportunities that involve uncertainty, because uncertainty threatens their role. None of these identities are inherently wrong, but when identity becomes rigid, it becomes a ceiling. People rarely ask, "Is this belief still serving me?" They ask, "How do I act in a way that feels like me?" And "feels like me" quietly dictates outcomes. This is why advice often fails. Advice targets behavior, but identity governs behavior. You can give two people the same financial guidance. One applies it calmly. The other struggles, procrastinates, or abandons it. Not because the advice was different, but because it conflicted with who they believe they are. Identity also determines tolerance. Tolerance for discomfort. Tolerance for ambiguity. Tolerance for delayed results. Someone who identifies as someone who needs certainty will find long-term investing stressful, no matter how sound the strategy. Someone who identifies as someone who adapts quickly may overtrade, mistaking movement for competence. Identity doesn't just influence what people do, it influences what they can emotionally endure. This is why wealth accumulation is often uneven among people with similar skills. One person can sit through years of slow progress without questioning themselves. Another feels compelled to change direction repeatedly because stillness clashes with their self-concept. The second person is not less capable, they are less aligned. Alignment is the match between identity and behavior. When behavior aligns with identity, it feels natural, sustainable, calm. When behavior conflicts with identity, it feels forced, exhausting, temporary. This is why lasting financial change requires identity work. Not affirmations, not slogans, but a gradual shift in self-perception. People who build wealth over time often undergo subtle identity transitions. They stop seeing themselves as earners and start seeing themselves as owners. They stop seeing themselves as busy and start seeing themselves as deliberate. They stop seeing themselves as reactive and start seeing themselves as measured. These shifts don't happen overnight. They emerge through repeated behavior. Behavior reinforces identity. Identity reinforces behavior. This loop runs quietly in the background. When someone behaves patiently and sees positive outcomes, even small ones, their identity begins to adjust. They start to see themselves as capable of patience. When someone resists impulse and avoids a mistake, they experience themselves as disciplined. Over time, these micro-experiences accumulate. Identity softens, behavior stabilizes, and financial decisions improve without force. The danger lies in inherited identities. Many people carry financial identities formed early in life, observing how money was handled at home, absorbing emotional reactions to scarcity, conflict, or instability. These identities feel personal, but they are often borrowed. Someone raised in uncertainty may identify as hyper-responsible, avoiding any move that feels risky. Someone raised in abundance may identify as entitled, assuming recovery is guaranteed. Neither identity is destiny, but until examined, both shape outcomes. Another overlooked aspect of identity is how people relate to time. Short-term identity creates short-term behavior. If someone sees themselves as someone who needs results now, they will struggle with compounding. If someone sees themselves as someone who plays the long game, they behave accordingly, even before results appear. This is not optimism, it is self-trust. Identity also affects how people handle success. Some individuals experience growth anxiety. When things start to work, they feel exposed, responsible for more, afraid of losing what they gained. So they unconsciously downshift. They stop pushing, they avoid scaling, they retreat to familiar patterns. This is not laziness, it is identity protection. Growth threatens the old self, and the old self fights back. Wealth, in this sense, is not just accumulated, it is permitted by identity. This is why people sometimes say, "I'm not comfortable with that much responsibility," or "I don't want to change my lifestyle." These statements are not rationalizations. They are identity boundaries. Crossing them requires psychological readiness. The most effective wealth builders understand this intuitively. They do not force identity change. They allow it. They take on slightly larger responsibilities. They hold slightly longer time horizons. They make slightly more deliberate decisions. Each step expands identity just enough to remain stable. This is sustainable growth. Contrast this with sudden wealth or rapid success without identity alignment. It often leads to volatility, overspending, poor decisions. Regression. The identity is not caught up. This chapter is not about reinventing yourself. It is about noticing the identity layer that already governs your financial life. The stories you repeat, the roles you protect, the limits you assume. Once seen, identity becomes flexible, and when identity becomes flexible, behavior follows naturally. Strategy stops feeling forced. Discipline stops feeling heavy. Patience stops feeling like sacrifice. Wealth begins to feel congruent, not because you changed who you are overnight, but because who you are quietly evolved. That evolution is the real work, and it happens beneath the surface, long before the numbers change. Chapter 8. When psychology aligns, wealth and influence follow. By the time people notice wealth or influence, the most important work has already been done. What they see on the surface, results, recognition, authority, is only the echo of something that aligned much earlier. Behavior, emotion, time horizon, social signals, and identity have quietly moved into coherence. And when coherence appears, outcomes stop feeling forced. This is the stage most people misunderstand. They assume wealth arrives because someone finally worked harder, found a better strategy, or discovered a hidden opportunity. But in reality, wealth and influence follow alignment the way shadows follow objects. They are effects, not causes. Alignment does not mean perfection. It does not mean certainty. And it does not mean the absence of struggle. It means internal elements are no longer fighting each other. Behavior supports strategy instead of interrupting it. Emotion is contained rather than driving decisions. Time horizons match the nature of compounding. Social signals reflect stability instead of urgency. Identity expands enough to allow growth without panic. When these elements align, something subtle changes. Effort becomes quieter. Decisions become simpler. Progress becomes less dramatic but more reliable. People often expect alignment to feel exciting, transformational, obvious. It rarely does. Alignment feels calm. It feels like fewer internal debates. fewer impulsive moves, fewer moments of second-guessing. You stop asking whether you're doing enough. You stop checking constantly. You stop reacting to every fluctuation. Not because you stopped caring, but because you trust the direction. This trust is not blind faith. It is earned through consistency. When your behavior stops contradicting your intentions, trust builds internally, and internal trust changes how you move through the world. You no longer signal need. You no longer signal haste. You no longer signal insecurity. Others feel this immediately. Conversations shift. Opportunities change tone. Responsibility is offered rather than chased. This is where influence begins to compound. Not influence built on persuasion or dominance, but influence built on reliability. People trust those who are predictable under pressure. They defer to those who remain measured. They include those who don't destabilize the system. These responses are not conscious decisions. They are instinctive. Humans are wired to move toward stability, and when your psychology stabilizes, wealth and influence begin moving toward you. This does not mean outcomes appear instantly. Alignment does not collapse time. What it does is remove friction. Friction created by emotional overreaction. Friction created by identity conflict. Friction created by inconsistent signals. Once friction is gone, compounding can finally operate uninterrupted. This is why aligned progress often feels slow at first, and then suddenly obvious in hindsight. Nothing magical happened. Nothing explosive occurred. Momentum simply stopped being interrupted. Think of a river. When rocks block the flow, water splashes, swirls, and wastes energy. Remove the rocks, and the same water moves smoothly, powerfully, and silently. Alignment removes internal rocks. So you are no longer fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, you don't need to push as hard. This is the point where many people become confused. They look at aligned individuals and assume they are naturally confident or naturally lucky. They underestimate the years spent learning restraint, emotional control, and patience. What looks like ease is often the result of discipline practiced long before recognition arrived. Aligned people still work. They still think. They still make decisions. But their work is cleaner. They don't rush into action to relieve discomfort. They don't abandon direction because of temporary doubt. They don't over-explain their value. They let time and behavior do the talking. This is why aligned wealth often grows quietly. No dramatic announcements, no sudden personality shifts, and no need to prove anything. Just steady accumulation. The same is true of influence. Influence doesn't surge. It settles. People begin checking in, seeking perspective, offering collaboration, not because you demanded attention, but because your presence became useful. This usefulness is not tactical. It is psychological. You become someone others feel safe building around. That is influence in its most durable form. At this stage, the pursuit of wealth changes. It no longer feels like chasing an outcome. It feels like maintaining alignment. You protect behavior, you protect emotional regulation, you protect long-term thinking. Because you understand that these are the real assets. Money is simply one expression of them. This understanding brings a different kind of confidence. Not the loud kind, not the performative kind, but the kind that doesn't need reassurance. You know that as long as alignment remains intact, progress continues, even when it is invisible. And invisibility no longer bothers you. In fact, you prefer it. Because quiet progress compounds better. Because attention often distorts behavior. Because staying aligned matters more than being noticed. This is the final shift, when wealth and influence stop being goals and start being indicators. Indicators that behavior is stable, that emotion is contained, that identity has expanded, that time is working for you instead of against you. At that point, effort feels lighter. Not because it decreased, but because resistance disappeared. You're no longer forcing outcomes, you are allowing them. And when psychology aligns this way, wealth and influence have no choice but to follow. Quietly. If there is one idea that runs quietly beneath everything you've heard, it is this: wealth and influence are not built by force. They are built by alignment. Throughout this audiobook, we didn't talk about tactics, shortcuts, or dramatic transformations. We talked about behavior, about emotional regulation, about patience, restraint, and identity. Not because these ideas sound refined, but because they are the real levers that shape outcomes over time. Most people spend their lives searching for the next move, a better strategy, a smarter system, a faster path. What they overlook is that no strategy can outwork unstable behavior, and no system can compensate for a psychology that keeps interrupting itself. When behavior is reactive, progress becomes fragile. When emotion drives decisions, momentum breaks. When identity resists growth, opportunity quietly passes by. But when these elements come into alignment, something fundamental shifts. Effort becomes focused instead of scattered. Time becomes an ally instead of a threat. Silence becomes comfortable instead of alarming. At that point, wealth stops feeling elusive. Not because money suddenly appears, but because the conditions that repel it are no longer present. This is not a dramatic realization. It doesn't come with a rush of certainty or a surge of motivation. It comes with calm, with fewer internal arguments, with less urgency to prove, with a growing trust in your own behavior. And that trust is everything. When you trust your behavior, you stop sabotaging compounding. When you stop sabotaging compounding, progress becomes inevitable. Quietly, influence follows the same pattern, and it doesn't respond to volume or performance. It responds to stability. People gravitate toward those who are consistent, measured, and emotionally contained. They offer responsibility to those who don't create chaos. They trust those who can hold tension without rushing to resolve it. This kind of influence is not claimed, it is granted, and it lasts precisely because it is not forced. If this audiobook leaves you with anything, let it be a different question. Not, what should I do next? But, what kind of behavior am I reinforcing every day? Because behavior compounds, emotion compounds, identity compounds, long before money does. You don't need to change everything at once. You don't need a new personality or a new life. You only need to notice where misalignment exists and stop feeding it. Stop reacting where patience is required. Stop forcing where timing is unclear. Stop performing where consistency would speak louder. Over time, these small shifts create a different trajectory. Not a louder one, a truer one. And when your psychology no longer fights your intentions, wealth and influence stop feeling like distant goals. They become natural consequences. Not because you chased them, but because you finally made room for them to arrive.